Lane, thank you for joining me today. It's awesome to be here with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. How would you describe yourself and what you do to somebody who has no familiarity with Lane Carlson or your website
Yeah,
or your body of work?
sure. You could say Lane Carlson, I'm a medicine guide. So basically, people will come to me with issues or they're looking for new changes in their life, and I help guide them. And medicine can be a variety of different things talking, getting into community, breath work, meditation, or actually recommending different medicines from the jungle. For instance, Cambo or ayahuasca, psilocybin, which is a big popular one right now. So helping guide people to living their most authentic self through natural ways of healing.
And when people come to you, are they coming to you first? Are they coming to you later in their experience and looking for something that will help them along the way to better health? Are they coming to you after trying lots of other options? Where are you finding people?
I'm finding I actually work with a couple doctors now that so once people have gone to a certain point, I think specifically here in the US, there's over 150 million on some type of prescription medication where prescription has failed them and they've maybe tried other avenues and they've heard about plant medicine or they've heard about breath work and meditation. Um, that's when they're being recommended to me. I would say half. It's been half and half. There's also those that have already been seeking. They're already the seekers out there, and they've maybe tried, let's say, mushrooms in the past, or they've tried LSD, but they've never tried it in a ceremonial sense. And so they'll come to me for more assistance in that way. And I also work with people now. There's this big revolution in people doing psychedelics, but the big part of it is the integration. How are you actually applying this new tool or this new learning to your life? It's like going to the greatest Tony Robbins experience or workshop, but then not actually applying the tools to your life. So that's what I'm getting a lot of recently.
Okay, so you're talking about these modalities and psychedelics and subjects that require a little bit of understanding, a little bit of digging to get a handle on.
Yeah.
So that leads me to your. Let's preface this with a little bit of your background experience and how you came to experience what you're working with now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my experience is just it's personal experience. So, being diagnosed with depression as a kid, I was always seeking alternate avenues in order to heal. I remember being prescribed Prozac, at the age of 13, 14, in order to heal. And I just remember at a young age being like, is this what is this what it is? Do I have to take these the rest of my life? And I remember my mom telling me, no, like you got to do things that make you happy. You got to, do things that change your vibration. And I was like, great, what? She's like, yeah, go watch funny movies, get exercise, hang out with your friends, do fun things. And so in the beginning, I had to, a bit fake it till I made it. But it was that shiny, that light at the end of the tunnel. And later in life, I would say more in my early 20s when I started feeling, this sense of maybe stress or, college and university and, or the high school issues were popping up. That's when I started seeking alternative medicine. That's when I found mushrooms. That was a big awakening for me to experience a oneness outside of myself with nature. And then it's, later in finding ayahuasca, Cambo, all these different types of medicines. Once the veil was opened up, once I started discovering all these different medicines, I was like, wow, I want to go try it all. And so I knew my path was going to be into introducing. I had just naturally fell into this role of introducing people to these medicines for the first time. They trusted me, and I would just be their buddy. Just help them, through their experience or through their journeys. I ended up going back to school for spiritual psychology. I got my master's in spiritual psychology. So I could tie the worlds in. So when I was talking with people or, they're having their first experience, I now had a different arsenal of tools to choose from when speaking with them on how to process their pain, their anger, their stress, their anxiety, whatever it was. And so that's what led me now to do what I'm doing, which is helping people through it. And in transformational work, it doesn't always have to be psychedelics. You can find psychedelics or you can find an experience outside yourself just through breath work, just through meditation, getting into yoga, And so I think that's the misconception is, the woo-woo transformational work has to, be, tripping on acid somewhere. It's like, no, that's not what it's all about. These are tools in order for you to change. These are opportunities. It's like 20 years of psychotherapy in typically one setting. But then it's, again, how you apply these tools to your life. And that's what I am for. I'm like your buddy to, your accountability buddy to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
And I think an adult in this space could understand the importance of that. As a high school student, it's interesting to me, if we can stay back in time a little bit, you had to have a certain amount of confidence in or trust in experimenting. I know a lot of people are intimidated by the prospect of doing something that's so potentially disorienting or different than what they're used to doing. What do you think it was that inspired you at a young age to be open to something like a psychedelic? I know there's pressure and there's all kinds of preconceived notions about what that might entail, what that might mean for the individual. So what do you think it was in you that made it a different experience that you were more open to?
Yeah. Well, let's backtrack. I wasn't doing psychedelics in high school. That's when the stresses and the anxieties were coming up.
Okay.
I didn't take my first mushroom experience until actually after college. And so I was 21 at this time. And that's when I had my first experience, 21 or 22. And that was the reason why I was able to choose into that is because I trusted the small group I was with. I had heard about it a lot. I wanted to experience it. And it was two very trusted friends that I felt so bonded with, and that I completely knew that if anything was going out of whack, or, I know I could trust them with my soul and my life. And so that's what led me to go experience this for the first time. They knew the dosage. They were very well educated on how this affects the body, what will happen. And so for most people, that is, you got to trust your instincts when you're doing something like that. You have to trust yourself that you're going to be okay, and you got to do it in an environment where it's safe and secure. And so for me, it was in this beautiful meadow forest, and just surrounded by nature. So it's a big part of it is that set and setting. How you're approaching these psychedelics, with who you're with, and knowing your dosage. You can't just jump into these things like, yeah, that sounds great, I'm just going to start popping in a bunch of mushrooms, or that's where things can go bad. If you don't have the right people around you, don't have the right set and setting, things can go a little haywire for you.
So your first experience with psychedelics, with psilocybin in particular, it sounds like that was what it was, your first time with
Yeah.
psychedelics. So you weren't doing it specifically to have an experience that was a medical or seeing it as medicine. You were doing it as a communal experience,
Yeah.
something new, something novel with people that you trusted.
Right. Yeah, that was it. And I think a lot of people will start at that in that wave of, it's more of a recreational, or it's, I want to experience this. I've heard so many great things about it. I want to try this. Once you experience it, you feel what it's like. It's that experiential learning of what this medicine does for you. And then for me, that was like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand what this is all about. And for me, it wasn't this, oh, this isn't just going to be a party drug or anything like that. This was, for me, it was a bigger understanding of, this was a communal thing. It can be a communal thing, but it also, the way it affected my body. I felt so at peace with myself and everything around me. That's where I was like, wow. It's like the world needs to be turned on to this. It's such a powerful medicine.
And you quickly saw ways that the plant medicine could apply towards pre-existing conditions in your own life, hearkening back to when you were first diagnosed with something that clinicians are calling depression.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, that was 20 years ago. So people
Yeah.
weren't really talking about psilocybin as an aid for depression. There was anecdotal reports. And so I knew that it affected me, and I felt great. But there wasn't enough studies, and there still isn't enough studies around it. I'd say just more so in the last, I would say 4 to 5 years, there's been more of this resurgence now into starting a lot more of the science. And so at that time, I was more anecdotal reports. It was like, no, this feels good. I love this. And I would go back to it. I remember that I just felt good from it. And it was I grew up in, an area in the Midwest where it was just, we only drank to have fun. It was alcohol, alcohol,
Yeah.
alcohol, alcohol. Then I'm introducing now psychedelic, like mushrooms. I'm like, I was able to experience an enjoyable time with my close friends and myself, and I wasn't depleted, and I didn't get depressed, and I wasn't anxious afterwards. And
Mhm.
so it was just more of this experiential learning that was like, no, this is a good medicine. This is a great way of communing and a great way of understanding different parts of myself and nature around you. And I wasn't depleted. And so I would say the last 5 years, 4 to 5 years, that's where more of the reports, that's where more people are understanding. No, this is actually great for depression. This is really, and the John Hopkins University has been doing some great stuff. The MAPS organization's been doing amazing work with it as well. So, and now then we're talking about it now. And I think there's just more and more psychedelic companies popping up, specifically around psilocybin, because we see the wave of what's happening. There's going to be this big psychedelic revolution in companies popping up as, now that cannabis is legalized. Mushrooms are going to be the next one here. MDMA, it's happening. We just gotta, and a lot of companies are getting ready for that big push.
Do you think more people who are using psychedelics, maybe psilocybin and magic mushrooms in particular, between the ages of 18 and 21, for example, are seeing the substance as something more substantial than just a release or a party or a weekend activity? Because when I was in high school, I remember acid, LSD, and mushrooms were, taken to have a good time, taken to do something different. And there's something to be said for even group drinking, binge drinking, people going out and doing something that alters their realities together. There's a communal aspect of that for sure.
Sure.
Obviously, alcohol abuse isn't healthy, but do you think that people are more widely regarding these substances as medicines? Because we don't often think about medicine as something that we go purposefully to ingest. Medicine is usually something in the allopathic sense that is given to us when we're in dire straits or when we're in a less than ideal condition. Do you think the perception of these substances has changed that thoroughly for people maybe in that younger demographic?
Yeah, I think a younger generation is much more educated than I would say I was previously. They're
Mm.
understanding more the intention behind what they're consuming. And so I'm witnessing a bigger group, especially out here in Los Angeles, of this younger generation um, taking care of themselves more, but then understanding the mushrooms, the psilocybin, the microdosing of LSD, the microdosing of mushrooms. They're they're being introduced to this medicine in a more pure and educated way, and they're understanding that this is medicine. Whereas before, when I first started, it was, thank God I had some really good people that I was doing this with, but it could easily have been introduced as, you know, drunk at a party and someone offering, this to you, and you're like, okay, well, I think it's good. So no, I think it's more because there's a lot more communication, a lot more talk, a lot more podcasts, a lot more
Mm.
education around this as medicine and the intention behind it, and that's what's really exciting.
Do you think it would be safe to say, or a safe generalization to make, that people are looking for solutions now more than ever because the world's problems are more prominently in our field of view?
Yeah.
Really, like, just maybe we're more hyper aware of things that could use some augmentation in the effort to fix and transcend. So an embracing of the idea of finding medicine or tools, to better, the self and hopefully the world around you. Maybe the movement is connected in that way.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I definitely feel that that's the big surge, especially now when people are trying to instill fear upon you, whether it's, COVID or, police and you name it, that there's a bigger divide that I feel media is trying to infiltrate on us. So there's a much bigger divide happening. And it's within us to say, no, I love humanity. I love myself. I love those around me, and psychedelics can be that one union for me, because when you do experience that, you, let's say psilocybin, or you have an LSD experience, and you feel the oneness. So you see your brothers and sisters as your brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter race, doesn't matter your color, your political background. It's because we're all in this together, and we don't need to create the shitstorm, that the media tells us that we're living in. We can choose what we want, and I think that's where this great divide is going to come to a head. And I feel psychedelics can be part of that revolution. And again, it also comes down to our choice. Psychedelics can help show us and introduce us to a new path. But again, it's up to our divine choice. What do I choose to believe in? What do I choose to live my life?
So recently I've seen more and more literature about psilocybin. I know there was an article in Newsweek recently about psilocybin magic mushrooms being used as a treatment for depression. So I'd like to ask you a very basic and kind of silly large format question. What is your definition of depression?
I'd say depression is an emptiness, a darkness, a feeling of being detached of community and others. So it's isolation. And I would just say that because those are the words that define what I felt, in my own depression. So depression to me it was isolating. It was alone. I didn't feel a part of my family or my community. I felt different. And that's what depression meant for me. And it was almost like I was just in a cave by myself. And so that's why I feel, and I don't want to say anything wrong about SSRIs, because some people do need those at times. It's been helpful for people to get over a crutch in their life or move into a different place. And that's okay. I don't feel like it's a forever long-term solution. And I was almost, in that boat of taking it as a long-term solution. I'm glad I didn't. I think we're meant to have extreme highs, and we're going to have extreme lows, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to be super happy. That's who we are. We can't feel the excellence of, the big joy and, these big high moments in our life without understanding what the lows are as well. And so it's okay. That's what I'm realizing now. It's okay to feel depressed or sad sometimes. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be there forever. It doesn't mean anybody's going to be there forever. We'll come back. We just got to take care of ourselves. We've got to understand what works with our bodies and how we need to change our vibrations in order to come back to that place of, stillness or happiness within ourselves.
And anyone who Googles what is depression can come up with a synopsis, a scientific synopsis, talking about serotonin, talking about neurotransmitting and the brain's function. But in your words, scientifically, when depression is occurring in an individual, it's supposed to be indicative of what kind of situation, neurologically speaking?
Yeah, so they say that your serotonin levels are depleted. It's a chemical imbalance within your brain. Yeah, okay, we can say that. So then that's where it brings me back into, using, let's say, a psilocybin or a microdosing even of psilocybin to open up that brain capacity again. So the psilocybin will attach to the 2A serotonin receptors in your brain, which causes more of a euphoria. It causes these psychedelic types of experiences. It brings you into that oneness. It restricts a part of our brain, or restricts a part of that energy to our brain. It's called the default mode network. So when we restrict energy to that part of our brain, the rest of the brain opens up. It looks like the 4th of July in our brain. It's really amazing. They did a fMRI machine scan on a brain on psilocybin. And it's really amazing what happens, because all the neurons then are all lit up, and new connections, old connections that have been lost are now reconnected. And so I say psychedelics can have an impact on the neurochemistry of our brain. So if you think of depression as a neurochemistry or chemical imbalance where something's depleted or not quite connected, psychedelics can help open that back up. It can help reconnect neurons. It can help bring back a healthy chemistry to your brain.
So I want to talk to you about microdosing as a treatment for depression specifically. But before we do that, I want to ask you about one more definition, and that's psychedelic. So if someone is just encountering this program for the first time or just learning about What what is a psychedelic? What does psychedelic mean, and what signifies something having psychedelic properties?
I think the psychedelic experience, what many people will associate with that, is an out of mind, out of body experience. Whereas it's not of the normal physical world reality. So it's out of this world or out of your normal psyche, if that makes sense. And so blurry vision, trees waving, new different types of colors and new auras. We're opening ourselves to different color spectrums. That's a psychedelic type of an experience. And so you can have that within, mushrooms or LSD. And that's either eyes open, experiencing the world around you because it's out of our normal psyche, or it's eyes closed. Now we're looking at the psyche within. Now even with your eyes closed, you're seeing sacred geometry, shapes. We're seeing colors that we haven't experienced. So it's the altered psyche within or the altered psyche without.
The experience of microdosing is supposed to be sub-perceptual. Is that the way that you refer to it? Where it's happening, the benefit is occurring, but you're not having an experience that's taking you out of your regular waking reality.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's meant to be. We're not Microdose is supposed to be able to take care of everyday activities. We don't want to be laid out for 4 hours. That's not what this is about. Yeah.
Where do you think people are turning to find inspiration and build a mentality that their well-being is worth fortifying, is worth building up at this time? Where are people turning to find inspiration, to find new information, to help them be open to new ideas, to help them be confident in considering experimenting with something that could improve their state of wellness?
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing it, with Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. It became an immensely popular book, and that was amongst people that might be interested or respected his work and wanted to know this novice that wanted to go experiment with psychedelics and his experience on it, because you're seeing that popularity. So people are looking to a Michael Pollan. They're looking at the Joe Rogans of the world now too. Joe Rogan is a very popular podcaster, as you know, big into MMA. He's the bro's bro, I would say, because a lot of guys respect him because he is he's a fighter, he's a commentator, but then he's also bringing on other amazing guests. I think he speaks to a wide variety of people as far as the power and the use of psychedelics. Recently, it was a couple of years ago, Mike Tyson came out with his DMT experiences. So you're seeing a lot more of the mainstream. Goop Lab, Gwyneth Paltrow came out with her show, and they were talking about doing mushrooms in Jamaica. So you're seeing a lot more of the mainstream, a lot more of the celebrities coming out. And by the way, people have been doing this forever. It's just now becoming popular to talk about. Which is great, because that's changing legislation, that's making it more mainstream, it's making it okay. We're not putting the stigma on it again. So I would say, your mentors, or the people that others are looking up to right now, are coming out of the woodwork. And I would say a lot of the celebrities and a lot of the people, the authors that I mentioned, and that's what people are looking to right now. And that could also go in. Everybody's got the hippie neighbor, right? The hippie guy that they went to school with that always told them about these crazy psychedelic experiences. Now they are becoming the cool person to talk to. You're like, okay, now tell me about what you were describing in high school. What is that all about? And I think people are now wanting to get more educated on it, because they're taking their health into their own hands. I'm not saying doctors are bad, but some doctors are trained a certain way. And so now it's time. There's much more that people are taking the power of their health into their own hands and saying, okay, look, I get what you're trying to do. You've been taught a certain way, but now I'm going to teach and I'm going to educate. And I'm going to experience health for how I feel, how I want to feel. I'm going to try something new because I've heard enough reports, and there is enough reports on this, anecdotal or not. It's still, there's a lot of love around psychedelics. A lot of people are trying it, so that's why I feel like a lot of people are being drawn towards it.
What would you say right now is your current vocation? How are you accessible to people, and what is your role right now, as you would describe it, with your mission, with your practice?
Yeah, I would say my mission within this space is to open up people to experience other medicines outside of what did we say, the quote unquote norm. And so I'm the excuse for people to go seek something else. And I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong, but I'm going to say, yes, there are other ways or other avenues or lanes to choose from. And so people are finding me right now. It's all been word of mouth when I first started. I'm also on Instagram and I post a little bit, but I post on there. I'm not on Facebook. And I have my website. So people are finding me in all these different avenues. What I'd say a lot of it is I have community retreats. I do a lot of one-on-ones, and what ends up happening now is people will tell their friends and their friends and their friends, and that's how a lot of my work has been. It's been really great. It's been the natural progression of think of think of mushrooms. They have a mycelium network. I don't know if you've watched the movie Fantastic Fungi. If not, you should go watch it. But that's been my network. You know, you starting with a few people, and then over the years, it just starts sprinkling out, and the word spreads, and the community builds, and that's what this has been all about.
So you're in the position now to introduce people to different healing modalities and wellness regimens that aren't necessarily mainstream yet, but that
Yeah,
you've taken the time to explore yourself, to delve deeper into. And I know you've made a series of films as well, which are available to
yeah,
watch on your website.
yeah, yeah. So I started that basically when I first started all these psychedelics and all of these new, and that goes into like the ARP wave therapy that I was telling you about. It's connecting DC current to your body to help alleviate pain. That goes into hyperbaric chambers. That goes into red light therapy, all these different modalities I started using myself that I didn't know about. So I wanted to start filming it and opening up other people to these different avenues for healing. And so, yeah, I've become that instrument to go. I wanted to go try it for myself. If it worked, I want to share it with others. And that's why I started. It was a series called What's Your Medicine, which is, I have an agent now pitching it as a series, as a show. So cross our fingers that one takes off. If not, I continue to do this and keep spreading the word and helping other people. You know, we have retreats that we'll do in Jamaica where it's actually legal to go do psilocybin. And so I'll introduce people to those retreats as things open back up. But then again, I do a lot of one-on-one with people as well. And a lot of Zoom communication back and forth,
Sure.
with people. So teaching breath work. The big thing is I'm not just the psychonaut into psychedelics. I believe a lot of our growth isn't just through psychedelics. It's how you take care of yourself on an everyday basis. So are you waking up and meditating? Are you waking up doing breath work? Are you exercising? That's the way I've dedicated to my life. And so that's the bigger message I want to share to others is what are you doing every single day? We can't do psychedelics every single day. If you do, you're going to be lost. It's great. You can have a good day and get lost in psychedelics. But then how is that helping you share your gifts with other people? How is that allowing you to be a part of society? It's not. You're just going to get lost in that. Just like you're going to get lost into using cocaine or crack or alcohol every day.
Right.
So, yeah.
And we've been following at Psychedelic Spotlight the emerging sector of medicinal psychedelics, institutional interest in presenting new medicines, well, new ancient medicines, but contextualizing medicine for our current day and age, and learning more about substances that have been on the planet for a long time. So there's certainly a recognition of substance as medicine, but we definitely want to keep in mind that integrating the experience involves what you're talking about, a presence of mind, developing a sense of well-being, and incorporating different techniques to continue to augment and better your life where available.
Yeah.
So and there are individuals like yourself that are making themselves available to share what they know and help improve the quality of people's lives. And I think that there seems to be, like we were discussing earlier, there seems to be, would you say there's a renewed interest in wellness? How might we compare this time to, say, 20 years ago? It seems like more people are paying attention to avenues by which they can better themselves and their family and their communities. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say even go further back, the psychedelic revolution of the 60s and early 70s. We're having that resurge again, but on a more legal and a more knowledge base. And I think because
Mm.
of a lot of the younger um, legislators that are out there right now have already been doing psychedelics for 10 years, or they've been doing it in high school, and they're now coming into power and making the rules. And they're like, okay, we got to make a change. We've got to, we got to step up, and they're realizing that the impact it's had on their own lives, and that's why they're, bringing up these new bills and new laws to make changes with our own governance. Um, so that's what I'm witnessing. And so, as far as the health, yes, I think America still is a very overweight, obese society. So that we're going to have that sector of people that are overprescribed medication and eating shitty food and drinking too much, and that's okay. You know what? That's their path. We have to respect that, but they're also that shining example of what we don't want. And that's where we're seeing this big resurge of a lot of people coming in, be like, I don't want to be that way, or I'm in fear. Like, especially during COVID now, people are sheltered down and they're living in this world of fear. Good Lord. That's the problem. When I get a call, it goes black. But yeah, there's this big resurge of people now living in fear, and then they're wanting to turn to something else. They see the avenues of what prescription pills or alcohol leads to them. They're like, okay, but what if I do take care of myself through breathwork, through meditation, through exercise, through psychedelics? I try and open my mind to something new and exciting, and then they tell their friends. That's what we're seeing, is this snowball effect of people and wellness. Specifically out here in California, in Los Angeles, there's an amazing group of younger generation that are, starting these retreats and wellness experiences, and
Mm.
it's, I would say it's trending and it's cool. And who cares? Who cares if it's trending? It's popular. Jump on that train. I would say jump on that train versus anything that's going to deplete your body. So
Mm.
I think it's great. And I'm glad celebrities are jumping on board with this, and I'm glad that it becomes trending things in Twitter and Instagram, and it's great. I would much rather see people experiencing that and jumping on that bandwagon than anything else.
To whatever extent you're able, what advice would you give someone who is not in Los Angeles, or maybe in a city like where I reside, Kansas City or Cleveland or anywhere else in the US, where there may not be as much ready access to these ideas? Or anyone who's tuning into this program who has an interest in microdosing, for example,
Yeah.
what's a good resource for people to use to begin their journey into this space?
I would say a good place for people to journey in is, first of all, finding podcasts like this. The Third Wave is actually doing some really good stuff. It's a website people can go to and check out different information. The MAPS organization, maps.org, that's another great resource for people to go to. Google can bring you many different places, but I mentioned a few there. Wake.net is another organization that I advise for. And these are the ones that we bring people on these personal retreats to Jamaica to have these experiences. So a lot of people that are stuck and where do I find mushrooms? How can I get that? You can go to places like Jamaica where it's legal and it's okay. It's a little bit more expensive to get there and go experience these, retreats, but it's worth it. If you want to have this experience in a safe manner with people that are, that are professionals and experienced with psychedelics, then you would go to a retreat like that. And so there's a lot of those popping up, and you don't have to go. Wake's one of them. There's many others. You just find a group that you resonate with. I don't recommend people just going to the black market and finding a street dealer. Like, you gotta, when you're consuming this, you gotta make sure you're finding, good resources. And I can't tell people where to go do that. You have to use your best judgment on that. Obviously understand that this is illegal substance as far as our government is concerned. And that being said, people are finding it everywhere.
Sure.
Go to a cow pasture and go find your local farmer, cow pasture. I'm not saying go pick them, but go read up on it, and you can discover where you can find these things, for
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
And beyond even finding the substances, just taking the time and making the connections to learn about what's possible for your life and how you can improve your life by doing a little bit of research and by digging in a little deeper. I mean, I love the idea of people being able to better their lives through augmentation of things that will help in the process and maybe turn away from things that are a little bit more destructive or dead-ended.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And people reach out to me all the time. So if any of your listeners have more questions or want to reach out, I'm always available. We can leave my information on the podcast.
We will. And before I let you go today, I would love to hear maybe an example of something that is inspiring you right now, something that you've come across or a conversation you've had or anything that's happening around you that you feel has been resonant and inspirational for you.
Yeah, I would say one of the most recent is it's someone that I've been helping get off of 25 years of being on antidepressants. And she was, she's a very, great professional. She's doing amazing things in her life. But there was this part of her that was just, numb. And again, the extreme highs weren't there, the extreme lows weren't there. And it's been a process, but now I'm witnessing this person blossom into finally feeling again and finally having these highs and having these lows and being okay with it. So that's been a very inspirational for me to see the transformation. And another one that I mentioned earlier is what I'm witnessing is this young generation out here, specifically in LA, that are so on board with this revolution of psychedelics, but the education around it. And so they're learning how to play instruments within psychedelic journeys. They're understanding, the dosage, how to help people. There's so much willingness of people to better themselves through psychedelics, but then wanting to spread the word. They're starting these retreats, and yeah, they may have a lot more to go as far as understanding how to lead retreats. But the willingness to do it has been really inspiring to see, to want to share that gift and spread the word to other people. So yeah, that's what I'm inspired in, is this next generation, this new energy coming in, and they're gonna be the ones that are gonna push this thing forward. So that's what I'm excited to see.
Lane, thanks for taking the time to share with the audience here and with me a little bit about your experience, your perspective, and what you think psychedelics can do for our society now and in the future.
Yep.
I'm inspired and excited and very hopeful for what's possible.
Likewise. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we will be in touch.
If people want to hear more about the work that you're doing, whatsyourmedicine.org is the website, correct?
Yeah, whatsyourmedicine.org. You can find me on Instagram, Carlson Lane, CarlsonLane. It's at Carlson Lane on Instagram.